Howdy. My name is Nehemiah, and I make videos about all sorts of things. This one has a bit of sensitive topics on abortion, and if you'd like to click off, I think now would be a very wise time to click off. But otherwise, if you are here, I'm going to be speaking about the Rongorongo tablet. And for years, the scientific community has examined this. And a lot of linguists have also looked at this, but I was in my apartment in Seattle one night and I called out to God, asked for his help, and I believe I've correctly translated this tablet. And I wanted to share this discovery with you. I've sent this finding to some professors, but the issue with it is unless I were to write a proper scientific paper, it couldn't be peer reviewed. And as it is, I was basically told off in less words that this wasn't the right track of thinking. And as you watch the video, I think you'll understand the reason why. One of my biggest peeves with science is the scientific process. And a lot of things can't be explained so well with the scientific process. We look at history and we look at it in the wrong lens, the lens of science, where history was really, it started as a linguistic story. So everything that we know is because a story was told and then the story was written down in so many characters. And that's why we have what we have today. Now, there are some details about the Rongorongo language that are a little bit unclear to me. And so if some of this is jumbled, I apologize for those of you that know. But for those of you that don't, I hope I can explain it the best way possible and also make it somewhat entertaining so it doesn't bore you. So to start off, the Rongorongo uh, tablets were found on an island. And the way the story goes is this island had a lot of individuals that were doing pagan rituals. And the island was left alone because the rituals were so obscene that traders didn't even want to do trade on this island. However, some missionaries heard of this and they traveled to the island where they found out that sure enough, there were rituals being performed on this island, but to them, it was so gross and so uh, disgusting that they made the islanders decide to either follow or to die. And that is definitely not the right way to do missions. But it turns out that a lot of them didn't want to stop. And as a result, there was a great massacre of the original tribe. And there were a few people left, I think more out of fear than out of um, love for Christ. But the ones that remained apparently stopped the rituals. And when the island was revisited years later by a scientific journalist, they found out that these tablets that were once held in like high esteem and were used for these rituals, but the tablets were now being used for fishing. So they wrap fishing line around it and then toss the line and then wrap it back up. So this is one of the tablets we see that was left over. And I wanted to explain a little bit behind it. So at about this time, I was studying my paramedic textbook and I came across this. And this is an example of ectopic pregnancies. And if you stick with me, you'll see why it's important. But there's a couple different types, right? There's ampulla ectopic pregnancies, a interstitial ectopic pregnancy, an ovarian ectopic pregnancy, and a cervical ectopic pregnancy. All right. So we're going to keep that in the back of our mind. And then there's other things that are used, and we do not use these in pre-hospital EMS. This is only used at clinics. But these are abortion tools. Now, they're used to widen what needs widening, and then these are used to pick apart. But I think it's also important to keep in mind. And I didn't grab an image of it, but I wanted us to remember that a lot of the metal tools we have today were originally bone tools in the past. For example, needles. used to be bone needles, or axes used to be stone axes, not the metal axes we have today. All right, so just keep this in the back of your mind. All right, then this is the Rongorongo tablet. And if you look at it, it has a bunch of different inscriptions on it. And the deeper you look at the inscriptions, like the more you look, the more you see that there's some patterns that are repeating. All right, see that? So we're going to toss this puppy over right over here. Now, there were a couple different people that have tried to translate this, and because of their help and the many hours they put in, we're able to see that each of these scripts has a certain like number attached to it. So this is based off of a system by two researchers, Pozniakov and Pozdniakov, in 2007. All right. So underneath each character, we see a number. Now, this I think is where things went wrong very quickly because it was thought of as being some sort of linguistic explanation rather than being another explanation. And what I believe is this is a collection of um, the lineage of the people based off of a history. And it isn't the history that we think of as today, where we have genealogies based off of biological genealogies. What this was is it was actually based off of a um, like an LGBTQ plus community model. Okay. And it explains itself. All right. So if we look at it that way, we can understand um, we'll have different types of people. So we'll have a man, which was two ribs. If we look at the biblical story, the Lord God took one rib from man and made that a woman, right? And then we have a couple, which looks like a wishbone, right? So that is something that can break or snap. And when it snaps, it's divided, but it's not divided evenly. One side takes more than another. And I got this idea because my family talked about purity growing up, and my aunt and uncle also talk about purity with their children. So my cousins, but when two people get together and they're not in like the union of marriage and they break up, one side takes more than the other. That's why this is a wishbone, right? A couple, a boyfriend and girlfriend that came together. The man and the wife are like that part of the chest of a bird where they're joined together, it's one flesh. So the man and the wife are one flesh, okay? And that's specifically man slash wife, all right? And then we have a couple with children and then twins. If we look at the twins, we'll see that it is two sets of ovaries, right? Or is that, am I saying that wrong? um, like the fallopian tube and the ovaries, right? So it's like two sets of that. So in their thinking or in their understanding of the human body, twins were using both sets. That makes sense? Or the capability to produce both sets. Then we have relationships, right? So we have the single relationship, we have together relationship, and then we have separated, together, and uncommitted, right? So it's like two boards lying on top of each other. And then we have different types of medical history about what happened. So, out of wedlock sperm, where the boyfriend left, and then out of wedlock sex that brought marriage. All right. And then we have a family unit. So, we have an infertile gay patriarch. So, that would be an individual without the ability to produce. And then infertile gay father, and then infertile gay son where the lineage ends, like an X, like, oh, no more lineage. And then a male gay family expressed as a lineage. Okay. So that would be together, together, together. All right. Make enough sense? I'm going to get rid of this. The next thing we have is we have a different type of family, but this is the lesbian family. So if we look at this, we have an infertile lesbian matriarch, an infertile lesbian mother, an infertile lesbian daughter, and a lesbian family expressed as lineage. All right, all the way down. And then we have the medical language when it goes to life and pregnancies. So we have a pregnancy, the egg is where it needs to be. An ectopic pregnancy, the egg is not where it needs to be. And then a miscarriage, and it was thought that it ruptured the fetus. Does that make sense? And then a delivery with the angle looking down at the woman from the head to the toe. It's like when a woman being crouched over, and then infertile, tubes twisted woman, and then an unclear, some sort of version of a menopausal birth. All right. And then we have the surgical tools that we use to perform these different medical surgeries. All right. So we have a vaginal retractor, a scalpel, an abortion tool for the tubes, a needle for medications, a vaginal speculum, which looks surprisingly like this one right here. Isn't that crazy? And then a male sterilization tool, which I could not imagine. Like that must have been absolutely horrid. Then we have gods, and these are the gods they believed in. So little g gods. So there's the fertility god, a miscarriage god, and then an ovarian torsion god. All right. All right. Then we have different types of diseases. So we have a STD, which affects the woman, right? Do you see that? And then we have crabs, and then pelvic inflammatory disease. Different types of arousal. So an infertile aroused man, an infertile man that cannot experience arousal, so like some sort of erectile dysfunction, an infertile aroused woman, and an infertile but not aroused woman, right? And then we have different types of fertility. So we have insemination, unsuccessful insemination, and a fertile male, and then different types of body parts. So we have a penis, a vagina, an anus, an ovary, uterine tubes, and different girth sizes and breast sizes. Just bear with me, okay, I promise. Okay. So if we were to look at this, there's a couple assumptions or things that we could fill in. Okay. So the Christian missionaries disapproved of these rituals, which were likely gay or involved the LGBTQ community in some manner. The local population didn't mind that the rituals stopped, but they used the tablets irreverently. And that goes to show that it's the human nature to be straight, and the straight population that remained didn't really care about the gay sex language. They just kind of used it as like a fishing lure. And then history repeats itself. This is the LGBTQ plus language of its own day. And then there's more about, I think I explained it earlier, right? So the idea was to record the genealogic history of the tribe, but it focused more on the sexual characteristics of the offspring with detailed surgical records of any body transformations or problems done to it. So the question is, for those linguists in the scientific community, could you read this tablet and actually read it with this language in mind? And the reality is, yes, it can be read as a medical document. So, as far as I know, as far as this culture goes, this is the earliest medical language that they had. So, I hope you found that interesting. If you see any holes or any gaps, I would appreciate comments below. Um, I'd appreciate subscriptions too. It'd be nice to have more people subscribe so that I could possibly bring in some income to this channel. So, thanks. Appreciate you watching.